Have you been thinking about playing music for a living, but you weren't sure how to get started? I'll show you how. Let's dive in. Bradford Loomis from Lineage Artistry here. On this channel, we post new videos every week to empower your artistry. Today we're going to be going through part 2 of how to start your music career. If you haven't had a chance to watch part 1, you can do so right here. Alright, now that you've watched part 1 of this series, make sure you check out in the description below some resources that I think will really help you process what we're talking about today. And hey, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring that bell so you get a notification. If you have any questions or suggestions, you can leave those in the comments down below and I'll get to all of those. Now, if you watched part 1, you know the 5 things you've got to know before you start your music career. I'll go over them real quick. What is your reason why? Why do you play music? What keeps you coming back to it? How do you define success? What does success look like for you? For every artist, that's going to be a little bit different. What are you willing and able to give? What are the things that you bring to the table? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are you not willing to give? What are the things you're just not going to compromise on? And the 5th thing is, it does not matter how talented you are. You've got to put in that work in your music career. So today, the first thing we're going to talk about is branding. What does your music look like? What does it sound like? How do you want to dress on stage? What genre of music do you play? What font do you use on your album covers? What is your logo? What your merch table looks like? And what type of merch you're even offering? All of that blends together and it should have some cohesion wrapped around your brand. Having a greater understanding of your branding and your identity helps you to be more consistent and be more authentic and remove some of those barriers to telling your story. And it allows you to tell your story in a more powerful way where people are hearing what you're saying and they can remove some of those elements that are distracting because they don't go along with the branding. They aren't consistent. So you have that sense of cohesion that draws people into what you're doing. Now, some powerful questions you want to ask yourself to help identify your brand and to start gaining some branding clarity are these next 3 questions. If your music was a person, what would they look like? Where and when in history would they live? Who would be attracted to them? Okay, these are some interesting questions to get you to start personifying your brand. I'm going to list below some good resources that help you to hone in even further on figuring out what your brand is. There's a great book called Get Weird by CJ Casciotta. He's an amazing brand builder here in Nashville. As well as Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. That's also a great book. Now, the last thing we're going to go over today that ties into your branding is what name you're going to release your music under. Okay, is it going to be your personal name? Is it going to be a made-up band name? Is it going to be a fake stage name? All those are fine, but you need to find something that works for you, that can't be confused with someone else, and that's really important today. If you plan to release music under your personal name, you're going to want to do an exhaustive search through the search engines. Check out the DSPs, the digital service providers. That's Apple Music, Tidal Music, Amazon, Spotify, Pandora, whatever. Make sure that you're not pulling up a bunch of artists with similar names. That's going to be really confusing for your audience. You have to stand out. It's really easy for somebody else's music who has the same name as you to get lumped together and you end up with somebody else's music, or worse, maybe your music ends up on somebody else's page and not on yours. It's really muddy to undo and it becomes very problematic. If there's a bunch of people that have a similar name to you, maybe use a middle name. If that doesn't create enough separation, maybe consider a stage name or a band name to release your music under. Next, check and see if it's trademarked. Check the trademarks, people. Maybe you heard of a band called Lady Antebellum who changed their name to Lady A to try to avoid some of the Confederate connotations. Well, there was already an artist out of Seattle named Lady A, and they had to fight over the name. And she had had it much longer than they did, but they had it trademarked. And ultimately, in the courts, they won. So you don't want someone to come along and steal your name that you had before they did, but they actually got it trademarked. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, suggestions, comments, go ahead and leave them in the comment section down below. And if you like this video, click like, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell, and get notified when I post a new video. I do every week. See you next week.